Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everybody. This is Sabrina Sayed from Jamming Entertainment Presents. I'm here again with yet another live show with yet another topic with some young group of people here again. Hope you're doing well, safe, and having a great weekend. Uh, before I start, I want to just mention 3S Technologies, who are the sponsor of the show tonight, and thank you for that. So today with us, we have four young professionals who work in different fields, but there is one thing in common, that is their success. They are very successful at a very early age in their career, and we are very proud of you guys. Before we move on, I just want to give a brief introduction about you guys, and then I will let you guys speak about yourselves and give us more elaborate introductions, and then we can move on to our question sets. So I hope you're doing well. Everybody's here. And the question, so we start with Sujuti Hawk. He's an urban planner who works for the city of San Carlos Bay Area. And then we have Shafqat Dulal. He is a software engineer on Facebook. And then we have Gina Zuhur. She is a young professional working in the applied behavior analysis field. And then we have Mahi Khan, who is a medical researcher in San Francisco Bay Area. And then so we are very glad to have you here. Thank you for your time, and we are happy to have you. We are very proud of you and for your success. We're gonna know more about your life and career and everything. So I will let you guys talk more, and then we can have a lot of questions we have, and all our viewers are here to listen to you guys and get help from you guys. Let's start with Sajuti. Do you want to talk about you and where you're from? Where did you go to college to, and what do you do exactly right now?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Sabrina, thank you for the lovely introduction. I'm Shejiti, and for my undergrad, I went to UC San Diego, and my grad school, I went to San Jose State and majored both in urban planning. And currently, like you said, I work in the city of San Carlos, a public agency, as a planner in the economic development, community development area, working on some really great long-range planning projects.
Awesome. So let's go to Shafqat. How about you? Anything? Where do you live and your career and all that?
Yes. So, hey everyone, my name is Shafka, and I've grown up in the Bay Area in San Jose. I went to UC Berkeley for my undergrad and studied in computer science. And for the past 2 years now, I've been working at Facebook as a software engineer, working mostly in the video space, specifically metrics. And we do some support for live videos. So this is right up our alley.
Oh, that's awesome. So Gina, how about you?
Hi, everyone. So I'm from Orange County. I graduated for my undergrad at UCI for public health. So originally, I thought I was going to go into like the medical field, maybe PA school, maybe even nursing. So I curated my undergrad experience through that. But then right after I got my degree in public health, I saw a listing for an open interview in the ABA field. And so I joined. I went to that interview, got the job, and so it was like something completely new. I didn't know. I just like during that interview, I was like, yeah, I could do it. Psychology, we got this. And but thankfully, this field was amazing, where like it's all about gaining experience through working. Right. So I learned a lot, and I got my master's in ABA at the Chicago School of Psychology, professional psychology. So I recently graduated from there.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Sure. So how about Mahir? How about you?
Yeah, so I'm Mahir. Thanks for having me here today. I grew up in the Bay Area, and then I went across the country to get my undergrad at the University of Rochester.
Wow.
I majored in neuroscience, and then I got my master's at Georgetown University in DC. So that took about a year, and then now I'm home, back in the Bay Area, and I'm working at UCSF in the Department of Neurology, doing some research. And I'm hoping to apply to med school this year, actually. So we'll see how that goes.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Awesome job, you guys. Let's move on to set of questions. We are going to have an insightful conversation today, and hopefully everybody will get a lot of information from you guys and have a lot of help for their future. So Shafqat, how was your college application process going? What was?
Yeah, so when it comes to the college application process, I found that it can actually vary quite a bit from university to university. So I'll go ahead and group it into two different categories, right? One are the private universities, and the other ones would really be the UC system, since that's the only public set of universities that I applied to. So for the private college applications, it was all under one common application. That's actually what it's called. And most of it is fairly straightforward. You know, you just fill out what activities you did, what grades you got, what your SAT, ACT score was. And then came the essays, which can actually vary a lot from university to university. Some universities like to be very creative with their prompts, such as find X, or just talk about something that you're really good at for the entirety of the essay. And other ones are a lot more serious, where it asks you to talk about certain life experiences and how they shaped you into a more open-minded individual, for example. Talking about the public university apps, it would be more or less the same. They just have very different questions. And I know that the UC system actually likes to change things up every few years. My year, I wrote 2 essays out of 6 prompts that I could pick. And from my understanding, current applicants need to write about 5 essays, but they're much shorter.
Oh, I see. That's interesting to know. So how much of an impact do you think you believe that this college did, and it mattered and made it impact in your career life?
So I know when a lot of people think about this kind of question, that they're most likely going to think that it makes a big impact. And guess what? They're correct. I mean,
I thought you were
obviously there's the quality of the teaching that's being done at the school, right? That's one thing. But another one is in terms of the career opportunities. A lot of big companies like Google and Facebook do tend to target specifically the top X number of schools in the country, so like top 15 or so. And by having gone to Berkeley, I was able to get some of those opportunities a lot more easily than if I had gone to another university.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. So did you find kind of connection between what you learn in school and kind of put it to work and in your practical life and work? Like, was there a connection, like you could find that it was very helpful for me?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question, because I know that it will vary. The answer to this question will actually vary a lot depending on what major we're talking about. For computer science, what I found was that the stuff that I learned in college was based on a lot of theory and also some practicality. But applying that to my work life was actually not as direct as one might expect. See, the thing is, in doing the interviews for the companies that I interviewed at, a lot of the knowledge that I got from Berkeley was directly applicable, because interviews sort of just focus on these hard theoretical or abstract concepts. But when it comes to the work, I can say now, having worked at Facebook for 2 years, that a lot of what I've ultimately learned and had to apply at Facebook was things I just had to learn at the job. So if there was anything that college taught me, it was essentially how to think as a computer scientist and software engineer that applies. The hard specific technologies, that just had to be something I picked up on the job.
Got it. So is it any different during this pandemic? Is it your work process or anything different? Is it challenging? Do you find it challenging right now for the last 6 months or so?
Yeah, so now we're really talking about how working at Facebook has been throughout the pandemic. And or rather Facebook, the company, has gone ahead and done a lot of specific steps to make it easier for people who have been working from home the whole time. For example, during the first half of this year,
Yes.
we were actually given a lot more leniency in terms of our performance reviews, which made it a lot less stressful.
That's
right?
good to know.
Yeah. In
Don't
addition,
need more stress anymore.
yeah, exactly. Although going into this half, I believe the trend is going to be different. I don't think we are getting that, so it'll be a little more stressful this time.
It's gonna be part of your life now.
Yeah. Besides some of the stuff that has been going on at work, we've had to support COVID specific projects. See, certain things within the company became a lot more important because of COVID-19. And so our team actually shifted their priorities to support these initiatives, such as live videos. Actually.
That's good to know. Lots of good information for everybody out there. So moving on to Shajiti. So I want to ask you to know from you that knowing what you know now, would you approach your college search differently when you were in high school or junior high?
Yeah, that's a great question. Knowing what I know now, let's see. I think I'd approach it a little bit differently, not take it as seriously. I think when we're younger, our perspective is very narrowed. If you either go to the best or you're going to be a disappointment. But I was very lucky. Like in the 8th grade, I got to visit Berkeley and Stanford, and then in high school, I got to go to Harvard and Columbia and actually do these site visits. So I recommend that physically visit the colleges that you're considering.
That's great to know. And how exactly you picked the college you did, and how did you end up in the college that you did?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I ended up going to UC San Diego. That was my last choice. I was disappointed. I was like, Berkeley didn't accept me, UCLA didn't accept. I guess I'll go to UC San Diego. And I didn't apply to any Cal States. I was just surrounded by a really smart group of people who were going to Columbia and Yale. So I was like, I'm going to go to UC San Diego, but it turned out to be so fantastic, such a great experience. But when you're choosing your colleges, try to step out of the umbrella of a UC versus a Cal State versus a private. Look into the programs. Certain programs are so great. They might be under the umbrella of a state school, have that that UC whatever reputation. But look at the programs. For instance, I did my undergrad at UC San Diego in urban planning. Very like Chef Cobb was saying, it's very theoretical. Some of these schools, they want you to pursue academia, go do your PhD. But if that's not your interest, when you go to grad school, I chose a Cal State specifically because they really mold you, and they're like, you want to go out into the work field? Let's give you professional development experience. Let's equip you with resources that'll help you survive in the real world and use these, theoretical knowledge, and you can actually apply them. So look into the programs, talk to alumni, reach out to people. You'll be very surprised. You're 18 and you reach out to somebody who just graduated. They're going to be very happy to talk to you.
I'm sure.
Out there.
And the views didn't harm either, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Beaches and views, I'm sure. I love San Diego. It's beautiful out there.
Those burritos and great professors.
Of course. So how did you prepare for your cities and ACTs? How exactly would you suggest people prepare for it?
Yeah, that was such a long time ago. I was looking at the question. I was like, okay, how did I prepare? Flashcards. I might be outdated, but back then, I graduated high school in 2009.
Oh, wow, okay.
I would just take, you guys from a lot of Bangladeshi people, when you're younger, you go to dawats with your parents. Take your flashcards with you. There are probably different flashcards now.
Also,
you just go through the words. I despise standardized testing. I think it's a very medieval way of assessing intellect, but you got to do it, and don't be afraid to take it more than once. I think you get to submit your best score, and those of you who can afford it, take prep classes and go to your local bookstores and Goodwill. You see a lot of great resources like practice tests and whatnot, and just practicing, because practice makes perfect.
Of course. And anything else you want to add for this upcoming kids, students who want to go to the college, and what would you suggest? Just for advice.
Yeah, it's a strange time for them, right? There's so many things up in the air. There's COVID in the Bay Area. We have these wildfires. A lot of the colleges are being evacuated. So when you're thinking about colleges, think about one, like I said, really just do some research on the program, the specific program. When you're like 16, 17, you don't really know too much about the world, and that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Years to decide until your major. It's not the world. Maybe you finish college with poli-sci or urban planning, whatever it is. Like you can go to grad school. So don't take it so seriously. Like it'll be okay. The fact that you're going to college is amazing.
Just take it easy. That's
Take
it.
it easy. Yeah, there's so many things going on.
Yes, of course. Oh, with the wildfire now these days, oh my God, it's just so scary.
I know.
Oh, so moving on to Gina. So what did you do during your summer breaks, and what would you suggest all the other students do during that time?
Gosh, I feel like I was like a completely different person then. So I mentioned I was pursuing a different field. So I was looking into PE school, and I actually transferred from a community college, and then I went to UCI. So I spent my first 2 years in a community college, took a lot of summer school. I've been working since I was 17. So while I was doing full-time schooling, I was working part-time. I also looked into a lot of internships. I did an internship at Hoag Hospital. It's in Newport Beach, pretty well known, nice views and everything. So I got my first experience with like direct patient care there. And for those who really want to be in that medical field, I really recommend getting those internships and jobs related to that field, so you really know what you're dealing with. Right. And I think a lot of my hesitancy in the medical field was because of my internship. So I got lucky that I got to learn about like what it really means to be working in a hospital and dealing with patients, dealing with all different kinds of people.
The exposure.
So yeah, the culture, exactly. The business. It's not all just medical field. There's a business side as well, and like you just really have to figure out if that's like the best match for you.
Exactly.
And so my recommendation is really just looking into internships, looking into like just getting your feet wet while you're in your undergrad, while you're very young. So it's okay to like make those mistakes and everything. So
yes, of course, that's such a great idea and great advice from your side. So does location of a college matter at all?
Yeah, you should always go to Orange County because the weather's nice. I'm just kidding. So I really recommend going to colleges that will give you exposure to like network, or like those that have the connections that will give you opportunities to network with other companies, as well as the location. Like, are there companies that are actually headquartered there that you can like look into? Like, I know a very popular school that's just because of the views, everybody really wants to go there. The party scene, I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. But a lot of people have transferred out of there because they can't really get internships there. Like, you're going to spend 4 years of your life in a school. You really want to figure out what you're going to do after that. So I really recommend like looking into locations, looking how that location of your school can benefit you in the future.
That makes sense. Right, of course. So students looking for jobs and internship, what would you suggest they do?
So the job hunt is very discouraging. And I mean, this year definitely doesn't make it any easier.
Oh my God, yeah.
But my advice from someone who just got a job, I've been on the job hunt during this quarantine year. I really recommend you guys to just apply, even though you don't fit 100% of the qualifications, because I think that looking at those experiences, they want an entry-level position, but you need to have 5 years of experience. Like, that doesn't really make any sense, right? It's just very discouraging.
Exactly.
So I recommend just applying regardless, because you never know if that company has a different position that would fit perfectly. Exactly. And that happened to me personally. So I can say with experience, like, sure, I applied for a job that was not 100% qualified. I was not 100% qualified, but I still got the job because they want to invest in you, and also like grow. They want you to grow within your company, and it's both beneficial for you and beneficial for the company as well.
Yeah, and it's some kind of experience. Any kind of experience is good. So
oh yeah, definitely.
Any kind of experience that will help. And for their first job, entering their first job, students, what piece of advice would you suggest give them before going for their first day or something, their first
So my advice is that you don't really need to find the perfect job the first time around. I know people are working at, shout out to Facebook, and that could be even more intimidating, but it's okay. You don't have to work at Facebook right off the bat. You should just take it as an experience and get your feet wet a little. Take it as a opportunity to really gain mentorship. Always ask those who are above you how they got there, and like how you can get there where they're at as well. And you never know. It doesn't even need to be in your field.
Yeah.
Like me, like I had no idea what applied behavior analysis is. I just really wanted a field that was also in the medical field, also helping people. And I get to work with kids. I get to make a difference in their lives. We work with a lot of kids on the spectrum. So that's also not really talked about in our community. Nobody really knows what autism spectrum disorder is, or it's very not really talked about. So there's so many different fields that you can come from and you can make a difference. And yeah, you just kind of go from your first job and then just work yourself way up.
The idea of the world, about the world. It's very helpful. Thank you so much for all of your advice. So Mahir, I want to know, what was most surprising or unusual encounter that you faced during your internship or your first job that was something very unusual to you?
Yeah, so kind of along the same lines of what Gina was kind of saying, like you kind of walk into your first job thinking like, oh, like I don't know much, like I'm kind of scared, I don't know what's going on, and then like you kind of make your way through the day, maybe through the week, and you start to realize like nobody knows what's going on around you. Like it's pretty much like a free-for-all. And so you kind of, once you start to recognize that like nobody knows what they're doing, like they're just kind of attempting to do stuff and they're all like trying different things, like you start to frame your questions instead of like, what don't I know? Like instead you kind of frame it as like, how do I get to what I need to know? Because a lot of people have tried different things in the workplace or like around you, and like it becomes a question of like, do I try what's been done and maybe improve something, or do I try something that hasn't been done and like has been influenced by like all the other approaches that people have done within your workspace, or maybe outside of it too, if you're looking at different collaboration projects and stuff like that.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
got it. That makes sense. So I want to say the statement, it's not what you know, it's who you know. How much of it is true?
I think there's definitely a more weight to be given to who you know. I think that's definitely super important. I know we've kind of discussed that in this conversation here, like, you know, where you go to college, it's not really like where you go, it's about like who like has the connections with those colleges, who has all those different stuff. But at the same time, like you do need to have a baseline level of knowledge about what you're doing. Like you can't, it's very rare that you can walk into a job or an internship or whatever it may be and come in with like absolutely no knowledge or no skills. So as long as you put in the work ahead of time, then it comes to a point where it is, I think, who you know can give you like a good recommendation, or can point you to like where someone is hiring, or maybe they're friends with the hiring manager or whoever may be, and from there you can you know, develop into
networking is also important then.
Exactly.
From the very beginning.
Yeah.
That's good to know. So everybody take notes. So what extracurricular activities would you suggest or you did during school and, you know, whenever you were free?
Free.
I know.
Yeah, no, I think so I was in student government when I was in high school, and that kind of took up a lot of my time. I played guitar for a while, and those were kind of my like two big extracurriculars. But I think like looking back, something that I would advise people like who are in that like high school range, or maybe even this actually applies to college too, like like try different things, try literally anything that interests you, and like if you like it, stick to it. Like it's definitely beneficial in the sense that like it gives you an outlet when you're super stressed and like things are going on. or maybe you develop a skill that you didn't realize like you could develop through like your traditional career or like education or whatever, or it's just an opportunity to maybe make friends with people who would be outside your circle anyway. So like I think
networking, that also comes to networking.
Right. But even less about networking, because I don't think it's just about like you know, work stuff. I think also just friends in general. Like a lot of my friends have been people who are outside the medical the medical field, or like going the medical direction. I think that helps to, I think, broaden your views and broaden your range and things like that.
You don't know unless you try.
Exactly.
You gotta keep trying and find new things.
Just do whatever makes you happy. That's
exactly. That's very important. Mental health.
Yes.
Stay sane. Well, I don't think we have any more questions from. Is there any questions from viewers? I'll kind of wait and see. But thank you so much for all of your information and tips and tricks and all the experiences you guys had. So moving on to Shafkat, I want to know about you as well. So can you also, just 1 second, how did you, can you also tell about your experiences about in the college and what helped you to get in the college?
Experiences regarding what helped me get accepted into college?
Accepted, yes.
Yes, so a lot of the focus I gave in high school, first of all, was on the academic aspects. I will say that. And that was a running concern throughout throughout all 4 years, basically. You know, making sure I get the right grades and then scoring high on SAT and whatnot. In addition to that, there was also a development of extracurriculars. So that means being part of specific volunteering organizations, such as Key Club or Interact. In addition to that, there were also some attempts to basically go ahead and develop clubs regarding various interests that I had at the time, such as a club basically centered around engineering or chess or math. Even though these all seem kind of minute looking back now, it did serve to at least, you know, pad the resume a little bit. Now, after all this stuff, there was still the essays, which I do believe have a huge weight on the final admission process. And when it comes to talking about what to actually put on those essays, it'll all come down to basically being able to talk about a good story based off of what has happened in your life, and then getting it proofread and edited so that it's written very well. And for that, I have to thank all the people who, you know, proofread my essays and gave feedback on that.
Got it. Thank you so much. Shajiti, do you want to tell me about your job interview process and what helped you and how did you prepare for it?
Sure, that's a great question. I'm going to piggyback off of what Gina said. You know, get your feet wet and don't be afraid. So my very first job interview was with a nonprofit called Bridge Housing. They're based in San Francisco. They're a nonprofit affordable housing developer, and the title was portfolio associate. I had no idea what that was. I'm like, and I'm like, what does that mean? You know, like, how do I prepare for this? And I just couldn't prepare. Luckily, like, I'm a social and I love like public speaking. So interviews I usually do like fantastic. If I don't qualify, that's because like my skills don't qualify for it, but never because I bombed an interview. So one, always overdress for it. You know, even if it's a casual tech company, just, you know, like nicely, because, you know, that's your first impression. The second thing, you know, do a lot of research on the company before you go in. So then when you drop some facts about like, oh, Bridge Housing has been around for the last 20 years, have developed more than, you know, 50,000 affordable housing units in the last few years. So if you drop these kind of facts, it makes you stand out amongst the other candidates. And always send up follow-up email. Thank you, Catherine, for the great interview. I'm looking forward to hearing back for the next step. So these are like usually my three go-to steps for successful interviews. And yeah, don't be afraid, even if it's 5 years of experience and you go for it, because sometimes like meeting you in person is very different from the resume that you've submitted. So yeah, don't be afraid, go for
Good
it.
advice. Thank you so much. Mahir, I want to know, how did you pick your school and why did you pick it? And going out of state, out of California, how was it? How was it?
Yes. So if it were up to my mom, I would not have gone to the
course.
East Coast.
I bet.
I know she's watching, so I needed to
bet.
rib her a little bit.
No doubt about that.
Yeah. So it was between a California school and Rochester when I was deciding between undergrad. And for me, the University of Rochester is a very small school, about 5,000 students or so. And it was it felt more like an environment where I could succeed, where I felt like I could get more research opportunities, especially if I want to go into like med school down the line. Versus like the schools I was looking at here in California were a little bit bigger. I felt like it might have been a little too big for me. So I feel like in that sense, it might have been, it was a good opportunity for me to kind of step outside the California bubble and try to experience like how life is for the rest of the country and things like that. And obviously, like a lot of people may ask, like, how was the snow for someone who grew up in California? How was, I have to say it is different. It is cold, but ultimately, like, you're only outside for about 10 minutes a day. Like, you can definitely get through. All the indoor spaces are 70 degrees, so it warms up definitely. And it was unique. I feel like I did sacrifice a little bit in the sense of relatively speaking, obviously, in the sense of how much I got to see my family as much, because obviously, like, I could only fly back for the big breaks. I couldn't come back for, like, if we had like a 3-day holiday or something. And I know, like, especially like amongst my relatives, like a lot of events happened during my college years, baby showers or wedding events. I know for example, Gina Bobby's wedding, like, I had to fly back and forth over like 2 or 3 weekends, and that was fun. And so, like, things like that. So I feel those are some considerations to make. So if you are really close with your family or whatnot, like, maybe that is something to consider potentially. Like, how often can you go back and see them? How much will you be missing, like, events like that? And so all that is to be considered. But at the end of the day, like, obviously, college is a step for your career, so you want to do what you need to do.
Okay, that's great advice. So do you work from home too at this time?
Yeah, I'm working from home right now.
Is it different? How does it feel like?
I felt like when I mean, it's definitely different in the sense of, so I used to commute to San Francisco, which is about an hour each way from San Jose, and so now I don't have to wake up at 6 a.m. to catch a 7 a.m. Train and walk at 9 a.m. I sleep in till about 8:39, which is all the difference in a work life, apparently.
Oh, tell me about it.
And so, and I think the other big difference is, the workday has kind of extended, so it's not necessarily. I used to leave like around 5:30. Now it feels like I can work until 6, 7 sometimes, and not that it's a problem. It's obviously a good problem to have in this time, but it does lead, like, working from home does lead to maybe some longer days that we typically would be used to.
Okay. I think we have a question from a viewer that is, during the job interviews, does the school you went to matter more, or your experience and skills? Also, we are all proud of you, Gina. We are proud too.
Wait, can you repeat it again?
Okay. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does school matter? Or your experiences? What do you guys think? I think more so, if it's your first job, definitely look into like they will look into your school and your degree, but also just kind of bouncing off what Sajiti says, just try to be as confident as you can in that interview and try to sell yourself. Just sell yourself as somebody who can think quick on their feet, who can learn on the job. Like that's a really good skill for you to take when you're going into the job field, because they want somebody, not somebody who knows everything but somebody that they can like kind of like mold and fit for their like company culture too. So.
Okay. Got it. That makes sense.
I think it does kind of depend on where you are. If you're just getting your first job, I think it does matter more so, like, school and who you know. And then I think as you start to move away from that job, or as you start to move away from school into other jobs, it starts to become what skills did you develop? How much did you grow at each job and at each company or each experience that you've had, and then it starts to become less and less about your school and more so like what you've done since you have that job experience.
Got it.
Yeah, I agree, Mahir. I think as you move away from your first job, it kind of matters what school you went to, maybe, but then treat each job like like almost a semester at school. Let's say, make sure you take away projects from it or use leadership. So then when you go to your next job, you can use these buzzwords like I managed or results I produced. Always give statistics. Like in these 4 projects, we generated $50,000 for these grants or whatnot. So, about the numbers and what you want to take away from it. Unless this is your dream job, then keep going at it. But treat each job like a project and make sure you take away tangible skills that can be applied and transferred to other jobs.
Yes, that's awesome. That's good to know. I also want to know from Gina about your transferring from community college to UC. Like, how was the transition? And would you also suggest doing so, or is it better to go straight to college? I mean, like some kind of UC or something. What would you suggest?
So I feel like when we're high school seniors, we're just like babies, right? So I feel like we don't really know what's out there in the world. And during my first 2 years were very formative of who I am today. But I feel like going into community college is a really like more affordable outlet for you to discover what you are into. Like if you knew you were going to be a doctor since 5 years old, all power to you. You do that. But not everybody knows what they're going to do. So going to community college is a great way to figure out what you're actually good at, and also doing your core classes. Core classes in a more affordable rate. And I know there's like a lot of stigma about, they went to community college, you're less or whatever. But luckily today, like not everybody thinks that anymore. Like this is just an opportunity for you to figure out what you want to do. And then in the end, you end up in the same position as those who spent 4 years in undergrad, maybe a little less student debt.
Yeah, that everybody does. That makes sense. Anybody else wants to give us input about that, or you don't have anything to say about that?
I think at this point, like seeing how COVID has kind of transitioned everyone into a online university, it does. And I've been kind of thinking about this, like not just in terms of COVID, but even before. Like if you think about how much college costs have grown over the years, like it's just outrageous, right? And like if you look at our generation, like I don't even want to know, like however many years down the line I have kids, like how much they have to pay for their college tuition, like and so in that sense, like it does come into question, like if you can save costs in the process of discovering like what you want to do with your career or whatnot, like by all means, that should be a very viable option. I think there is kind of a stigma around going to community college as they, in the Bangladeshi community. I think that's something that we really need to address. I think that's not necessarily like a thing that should be looked down upon, especially because there's huge, like you don't want to come out of college in 4 years with, upwards of 200,000 in debt potentially, and not really have a plan for what you want to do with your career. Because that's worse than, maybe you take a little bit extra time in community college and spend significantly less money and go at your own pace and discover what you want to do.
Okay.
So I think it's, there is starting to become a cost question in college now, and I think it is important for people who are like high school seniors, high school juniors, to really consider that as an option. Don't dismiss it just because there's this stigma around community college.
Oh, definitely. I agree with you. I agree 100%. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Thanks for all the experiences, tips and tricks and knowledges. And it was a pleasure talking to you. I think we have a question from a viewer, which is how much did what you learned in college classes translate into your professional careers? Who wants to answer that? Shafkat, you haven't talked in a while.
Yeah. So this particular question is interesting. I can go ahead and add on to the connection, right? This is really about the connection between what we learned in college versus what we actually do in our jobs.
Okay.
So there's this actually really good quote that I really like to refer back to when I think about the knowledge I learned in college versus what I've had to apply in practice. And it is that in theory and practice are the same, but in practice, theory and practice are not. And I believe that especially applies to what people learn in college because, in the realm of academia, there tends to be a lot of theory and formalization of the concepts we learn. And that like specific hard skills that we do pick up in college are sort of seen as a side effect, something we just need to do to actually demonstrate those theoretical ideas. Whereas in practice, so now moving to work, there is much less focus on theory, and it's all about what can we actually do. And when I speak specifically for computer science, I think this is especially evident because, in computer science, we like to build up all these ideas from ground zero, try to understand things from a first principles point of view. And that's how it is for a lot of the classes I took in my undergrad.
Right.
And in work, those ideas that we spent so much time building up are just taken as fact. They're just taken as things that we now just need to work with to actually get something done. And so the biggest skill that really carries over between college classes and work is basically how to think in that mindset, when it comes to solving higher level problems or just in general, being able to strategize upon the ideas that were picked up.
Okay, that's a great advice. Everybody, hopefully you're taking notes. And so I think we should be concluding this conversation. And then just want to thank everybody again for coming here and being here, giving us all the information, and all the viewers. I'm sure they have a lot to take notes of and can apply in their lives for the kids and the parents, everybody. It was a very insightful conversation. It was very helpful. I learned a lot today. I have a 6-year-old and I'm going to apply that for mine. I will try to keep in mind. Thank you again, and thank you, viewers. I just want to say that I know that perseverance, hard work, compassion, that helps the most for everybody in all our lives, and we should apply it in any phase of our lives. Viewers, hope you're having a great weekend and enjoy your day and enjoy the rest of the night, actually. And thanks again. We'll come again with yet another this topic to discuss and talk about more about our different things. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.